All right, so get ready, because we're doing a deep dive into something that, like, everybody deals with. It's those circles we hang out in. We're going to be looking at Your Circle Shapes Your Future. Choose Wisely by David Adu. And honestly, this is not just like some fluffy self-help book. It gets surprisingly strategic.
It really does. Adu's whole framework is about recognizing how much influence our social networks have on us, on like our mindsets and habits, even our success. He says it's not just about feeling good, it's about actually like shaping an environment where you can actually thrive.
So it's not JCT about, like, cutting out all the toxic people. There's more to it.
Exactly. It's about understanding like what's really going on and making choices about who we let in, who we keep close, and how we engage with them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we all have those friends who are great to go out with, but maybe not the best to be like, hey, we think this business idea.
Mm-hmm. So Duty says there are signs of a healthy circle. Does any of those like really stand out to you? Yeah, one that really spoke to me was constructive criticism. I think it's easy to surround yourself with people who just tell you yes all the time. But the people who are going to give you honest feedback, even if it's hard to hear, those are the people who help you grow. They're the ones who push you.
That's interesting, because I think a lot of people hear constructive criticism and think negative. How is that a positive thing in a relationship?
Well, think of it this way. If everyone around you is always just praising you, you might never see your own, like, blind spots. The people who give you constructive criticism, they aren't trying to tear you down. They're trying to help you build resilience and develop a growth mindset.
So it's like having a trusted advisor, someone to give you that outside perspective that maybe you can't see yourself.
Precisely. And another sign of a healthy circle is sharing knowledge and opportunities. It's more than just networking. It's a genuine willingness to help each other rise up.
Is that where the whole, like, a rising tide lifts all boats thing comes in?
Yeah. Absolutely. A healthy circle has that spirit of abundance. Like there's enough success to go around. They share resources, connections, knowledge. They get that everyone benefits when everybody grows.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, Adu also talks about those red flags, those toxic circle signs. I think we've probably all run into a few of those, right? What should we be looking out for?
One of the most common ones is energy drainers. The people who just leave you feeling exhausted after talking to them. They might be complaining all the time, gossiping, or always stirring up drama.
Ugh, yeah. I definitely know a few of those types. But sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between someone who's just going through a rough patch and someone who's just, like, habitually negative. How do we tell the difference?
I think it comes down to patterns. Is this person constantly bringing you down? Do they always make the conversation about their problems? And, most importantly, how do you feel after spending time with them? If you consistently feel drained or depleted, it might be time to step back and look at that relationship.
That's a good point. So it's not about writing people off right away, but
Yeah.
taking a minute to think about how the relationship is affecting you. What about people who, like, actively discourage you from growing?
Oh, yeah. Adu calls those people discouragers of growth. They might feel threatened when you're ambitious, or try to, like, subtly keep you at their level.
Oh, I've definitely seen that. You share a goal you're excited about,
Mhm.
and suddenly everyone's telling you to be realistic. How do we handle that negativity, especially if it's coming from someone we care about?
It can be really tough. But it's important to remember that their negativity is often more about them, about their own insecurities, their own limitations. It's not really about you.
It's easier said than done, though. I mean, if someone you trust is telling you to play it safe, it's hard not to listen.
It is hard, but you have to
Yeah.
develop that inner compass and learn to trust your own instincts. If you feel drawn to a certain path, don't let someone else's fear stop you.
So it's about learning to tell the difference between genuine concern and someone just projecting their own stuff onto us.
Exactly, and sometimes that stuff comes out as gossip. Edu says that toxic circles are often all about gossip over action. Lots of talk, no walk.
Right. It's like they're more interested in other people's lives than actually doing anything themselves.
Exactly. And that kind of negativity can be really contagious. It's easy to get pulled in, but it takes away from our own energy and focus.
So how do we deal with those situations? Do we just, like, avoid those conversations altogether?
It's not always about avoiding them, but it is about being mindful of how you engage.
Yeah.
You can try redirecting the conversation, or offering a different perspective, or just excusing yourself from the situation.
Okay, that makes sense. What about that whole taking more than giving thing? I feel like we all have that friend who's always asking for favors, but never seems to reciprocate.
Absolutely. Adu points that out as another red flag. Any healthy relationship, personal or professional, has to have that reciprocity, that balance of give and take.
Right. It should be about mutual support and respect,
Mm,
not one person constantly using the other.
exactly. And if you find that you're always the one giving, it might be time to step back and look at that relationship and set some boundaries.
So we've talked about the red flags, but how do we actually start building a better circle? It's not like we can just snap our fingers and be surrounded by inspiring, supportive people.
You're right, it doesn't happen overnight. But Adu lays out some concrete steps, things we can do to shape our circle more intentionally. He actually suggests starting with a pretty honest self-assessment.
What do you mean?
He says to take a look at your current circle and ask yourself some tough questions like, do these people push me forward or hold me back? Do they inspire me or drain me?
It's about becoming aware of the dynamics.
Okay, so it's about taking stock of our relationships and being honest about how they're impacting us. That sounds like it could be kind of uncomfortable. It can be, but it's a necessary first step. Once you have a clearer understanding of your current circle, you can start making more conscious choices about who you let in and how you interact with them. It's funny, Adu's advice kind of goes against what we usually hear in self-help, like we're always told to be positive, focus on the good. But he's saying we need to be a little more picky, right? More strategic about who we let influence us.
Yeah, that's what I thought was so interesting about his approach. It's not just about being nice to everyone, it's about being smart with our energy and time. So let's say someone's listening. They've done that honest assessment of their circle, and they realize, okay, some of these relationships need some work. What's next?
Edu says the next step is all about finding those growth-minded individuals. He thinks we need to be proactive about surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us, who challenge us, and who support our big goals.
Okay, but where do we find these people? It's not like they're wearing a label or something.
Right. It takes effort. Think about your passions, your goals, the things that light you up. Where do people who are into that stuff hang out? It could be online communities, industry events, workshops, even volunteering.
So it's about putting ourselves out there, being open to meeting new people who are on the same wavelength.
Exactly. And it's not about ditching your whole circle overnight. It's about slowly expanding your network and connecting with people who match your values and goals.
That makes sense. It's like building a diverse portfolio, but of relationships. Each one brings something different to the table.
I like that analogy. And as you start connecting with those growth-minded people, you might find that some of your old relationships just kind of naturally fade away. It's not always a conscious decision to cut someone off. Sometimes it's just that our paths go different ways as we change.
So it's more about focusing on the positive, on building those new connections, rather than dwelling on who we might need to distance ourselves from.
Exactly. As you shift your focus, your energy and attention will naturally go to those who uplift and inspire you.
That makes sense. It's like we attract what we put out there.
Exactly. And speaking of attracting, Adu has this other step I think is really powerful. He says, be the kind of person you want to attract.
Ooh, I like that. So it's not just about finding amazing people. It's about becoming the kind of person who attracts them.
Exactly. It's about self-reflection and personal growth. What qualities do you admire in other people? Are you living those qualities in your own life?
That's such a good point. We can't just sit around and wait for those inspiring people to show up. We have to do the work ourselves.
It's like that saying, we attract what we are. If we want to be surrounded by people who are supportive, ambitious, and kind, we need to cultivate those qualities in ourselves.
So it's about being the change we want to see in our circle. I love that.
And as we become more aligned with our values and work on our own growth, we naturally start attracting people who vibe with our energy. It's a really cool cycle.
But let's be real for a second. Building real connections takes time and effort, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you go to one networking event and suddenly have a whole new squad.
You're absolutely right. Building a circle is a process. It's about nurturing those relationships, being present and engaged when you interact with people, and offering genuine support.
So it's not about collecting contacts. It's about building authentic connections.
Exactly. And sometimes that means being vulnerable, sharing your challenges, and asking for help when you need it.
It can be tough though, can't it? Especially if you're used to being the strong one, the one who always has it figured out.
It can be, but a healthy circle is built on trust and support. It's a safe place to be yourself, even with your imperfections. And remember, you don't have to share everything with everyone. It's about finding those few people you really trust, where you can be authentic.
That makes sense. So we're talking about being intentional, being proactive, and being authentic. What about setting boundaries? Because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to those relationships where they might need a little space.
Boundaries are so important. They protect your energy and make sure your relationships are actually serving you instead of draining you.
Okay, but how do we actually set those boundaries? Because it can feel awkward, you know, confrontational, especially if it's someone you've known for a long time.
It doesn't have to be confrontational. It can be as simple as being less available, saying no more often, or gently steering the conversation in a different direction.
But what if they don't get the hint?
Then you might need to have a more direct conversation. Explain what you need and set clear expectations.
I think a lot of people avoid those conversations because they're afraid of hurting someone's feelings or messing up the relationship.
I get that. But sometimes a little discomfort in the short term can actually lead to a much healthier relationship in the long run. Remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's about respecting your own needs and making space for healthy relationships to grow.
So it's about being assertive but also compassionate.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. If you're struggling with setting boundaries, talk to a therapist, a counselor, or a close friend. They can give you advice and help you navigate those tricky conversations.
This has been so helpful. It's like we're taking this abstract idea of your circle and actually breaking it down into things we can do.
That's the goal. Because knowledge without action is just potential.
So we've talked about assessing our current circle, seeking out those growth-minded people, being the type of person we want to attract, and setting boundaries. What else can we do to make sure we're building a circle that really supports us?
Adu really emphasizes being a good circle member yourself. It's not just about what you get from other people. It's about what you contribute.
So it's about being a giver, not just a taker.
Exactly. Think about the qualities you appreciate in your circle members. Are you being supportive, encouraging? Are you showing up authentically and sharing your own talents and perspectives?
It's like being the friend you wish you had.
I love that. And it's not about being perfect or having everything figured out. It's about being present, being engaged, and genuinely caring about the people in your circle.
This whole conversation has really got me thinking about the power of connection. It's not just about having tons of friends. It's about surrounding ourselves with people who lift us up, challenge us, and help us become the best versions of ourselves.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this part of our discussion, I want to remind everyone listening that building a powerful circle is a journey, not a destination. It's an ongoing process of self-discovery, connection, and growth. And the best part is, as we evolve, our circle evolves with us. You know, one thing that I find really fascinating is how this whole circle idea applies to like all these different parts of our lives, not just personal relationships, but also like work stuff, professional networks, mentorships.
Oh, absolutely. Adu's framework is so flexible. Think about it. Who are the people you go to for advice at work? Who are the colleagues that really push you to think outside the box? Those relationships can have a huge impact on where your career goes.
Right. It's not just about like schmoozing and collecting business cards. It's about finding those genuine connections that can help you learn and grow professionally.
Totally. So it's about finding people who believe in what you can do, who can give you guidance and support as you face challenges and chase those goals.
Yeah, exactly. It's about surrounding yourself with people who see your potential and who want to help you reach it.
Okay, but realistically, not everyone has access to those kinds of mentors or networks, right? What if you're just starting out in your career, or you work in a field where those connections are just harder to find?
That's a good point. But I still think Adu's principles can apply. It's about being proactive and resourceful. Look for online communities, go to industry events, reach out to people whose work you admire.
So it's about creating those opportunities for connection instead of waiting for them to just magically appear.
Exactly. And remember, building a strong circle takes time. It's not a one-and-done thing. It takes ongoing effort and attention.
It's like tending a garden. You got to water those relationships, nurture them, and sometimes you got to prune away the ones that aren't working anymore.
Perfect analogy. And just like with a garden, a healthy circle is going to flourish and grow over time, giving you support, inspiration, and a sense of belonging.
It's funny, as we're talking about this, I'm realizing how much my own circle has changed over the years. Some relationships have faded, while others have gotten stronger. It's just a natural part of growth, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it's so important to embrace that change. Realize that the people who were perfect for you at one point in your life might not be the right fit anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's about letting go gracefully and welcoming those new connections that match where you are now, your values, your goals.
Well said. And it's crucial to remember, building a powerful circle is an investment in your future. The people around you can have such a huge impact on your happiness, your success, and your overall well-being.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how important my circle is and what I can do to make it even more supportive and inspiring.
That's great to hear, and I hope everyone listening feels empowered to do the same. Remember, you have more control over your environment than you think. Choose your circle wisely and watch your life transform.
That's such a great takeaway. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive. But the conversation doesn't have to end here. We encourage you to keep thinking about this topic. Reflect on your own circle and start taking steps to create that supportive, inspiring community, the kind of community you deserve.
Thank you so much for joining us, and remember, you're not alone in this. We're all in this together.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep building those strong connections that make life richer and more fulfilling.